Tonight we're discussing Ghana's B+ rating. Fitch Ratings forecasts Ghana's growth over the next 3 years at an average of 8.6%, largely to be boosted by rising oil production and its positive spillover effects on the economy, as well as infrastructure spending. Now, this B+ rating by Fitch has been in contention with that of Standard & Poor, which downgraded the B+ to a B, citing lack of clarity in the oil sector, the management of government's oil revenues, as well as the large fiscal deficit. But our focus tonight is not on the dispute of the rating. Instead, how will this projected growth impact the overall economy? What significance does it hold for the banking sector and also aviation? What does an expected 8.6% growth in the economy mean for the ordinary Ghanaian in relation to these two sectors of the economy? Access to credit at lower interest rates, or air travel made easy, etc. Tonight we'll discuss the impact of this Fitch rating on your life. You can join us as usual via text 1760, or you can post your comments, suggestions and questions on our Facebook. Or I have with me in the studio tonight Kweku Entry Bosiako, who is from Antrak. Kweku is the Chief Commercial Officer at Antrak. And then we have on the phone line John Gachi, who is an economist. Later we're expected to be joined in the studio by Richmond Kwesi Etuahene, who is a consultant at the National Banking College. I'll go straight onto the phone line to speak to the economist John Gachi to first lay the foundation for us by explaining exactly what these ratings mean. Good evening, sir. Mr. Gachi, for your time.
Good evening.
B+ Fitch rating, is it a big deal?
Yes, it's a big deal because that is classified as the investment grade rating by the international rating company. That sets the outlook of the economy and the government to spell out its ability to be able to amortize loans that are taken. And that will encourage investors to be able to provide debt capital for the country to engage in its programs. And that is also looking at the general macroeconomic environment, governance issues, because all those things are built into the outlook of the country. So by rating Ghana B+, I actually put Ghana as a brighter limelight, giving encouragement and confidence about the country to investors and partners who want to do business in Ghana. That is why it is a big deal.
So usually, what kinds of data are collected to enable Fitch or Standard & Poor, whoever does these ratings, to arrive at the conclusion they arrive at?
Well, they normally look at key macroeconomic data. They look at the major ones such as inflation, the growth of the economy, and then they look at the foreign exchange movement in the country and the general environment for debt capital. I'm referring to interest rates. And then all these things are anchored very much in what they now refer to as economic governance. So these are the key issues that are looked at. There are other things which are not purely macroeconomic issues. Things like stability of the political environment, deepening of democracy and governance, the strength of governance institutions and the way they have been operating in the country. They also look at how the legal system fits into the commercial activity in the country. So these are some of the things that I look at in order to rate the country.
And you mentioned forex exchange movement as just one of those things which are considered. Foreign exchange movement, we're not doing too well. I mean, considering the issues of dollarization that has been confronting us for a while.
Yes, every economy from one point to another will go to a cycle of difficulty. But what the rating agency will look at, the policy you have put in place to address that particular problem that you are facing with respect to the exchange rate, whether those policies are cogent enough, whether they are addressing the short to medium term situation, and whether they have given a positive outlook into the future. And if you look at the Ghanaian situation, you will clearly notice that the way the exchange rate was moving against our currency in January, February, March up to June, that has abated so much, clearly showing that some of the measures that have been put in place are yielding positive fruit, and it gives positive outlook into the future. I think that's the reason why they have considered us within the B+ rating range.
Now, permit me to read sections, portions of a statement that is on Fitch's website dated 18th January, which is titled, "Ghana Tax Collection Improves, but Spending Must Be Contained." The announcement by the Ghana Revenue Authority that tax revenue for 2011 would be 15.4% higher than initially forecast is a positive sign that underscores the government's continued commitment to improving revenue collection by broadening the tax base and increasing compliance, as well as modernizing the collection system, Fitch Ratings has said. Now, the government forecasts a robust growth of 9.4% in 2012, which should help to contain the budget deficit of 4.8% of GDP. But fiscal control has been particularly problematic in previous election years. Can you really tell us what this means?
What it means is that we have actually recorded some success with respect to tax administration and revenue collection in general. That also is reminding us that if you look at the history of our country, we do not do very well with macroeconomic indicators and revenue mobilization in election year. So that statement seeks to remind us, and especially those who are managing the economy, to be mindful about derailing the economic gains that we have chopped over the years in an election year, and that can be devastating because the cost of trying to fix the economy after election is so great. Private sector will bear it. You will realize that when President Kufuor came to the scene, because of the nature of the economy at that time, in order to fix it, he had to put some stabilization levy on the private sector. And when the NDC also came to power initially, and they claimed that the economy was not in good shape, they also levied the private sector to contribute more to fixing the economy. And the individuals in the country also bear a brunt of the cost of that, negative conduct during election year. So they are just reminding us that there is a cost to bear if we do not look at the positive signs that we have and maintain them in an election year. So I must also indicate clearly that we do not have to take the statement of Fitch Ratings, Standard & Poor's, and other rating agencies absolute, because we do know that even though revenue collection has gone up drastically, it does not match up with the level of economic expansion that we have right now. We are expecting about 30% to GDP tax collection, but we now have improved greatly to around 20% of GDP. That shortfall is so great that it can affect the economy. We also do know that we have a lot of loopholes in our tax system which we have not addressed. So this statement that have been captured by Fitch should not overly take us out of the way. We need to focus more to strengthen the loopholes in revenue mobilization. because we need to bear in mind again that we are middle-income nation. Even though we are the lower age, we are going to face a lot of challenges in terms of mobilizing external funds. That is the reason why focus on strengthening revenue mobilization should be our focus.
But if you say revenue collection has gone up, then you are saying that we should focus on strengthening revenue mobilization. Can you clarify?
Yes, in most countries, that revenue mobilization have gone up across board. You see that they have good data system in terms of national identification system that is able to capture the people economic activity with ease, and payment of tax is more adequate than we have over here. You realize that they have introduced electronic system in a tax administration that make cost of paying tax and adhering to the tax laws more easier for the taxpayer, and efficiency is improved across board. So that is not happening over here. And all the time we keep on complaining that there are a lot of people, especially in the informal sector, who are not contributing to tax revenue. Those situations still remain as they were some years back. So we have not addressed them. So those are the issues that I'm actually addressing.
Right, Mr. Gachi, I'll have you hold on, and I'll bounce off some of the issues you've raised to Kwekwe Nchubosi contract. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good. I started off by speaking to John Gachi to give us a broader view of what the issue is. So tell me, from the aviation perspective, is this 8.6 projected growth rating by Fitch good or bad news for you?
Good news. Very good news, because when the economy expands, all things equal, we know business people want to be more productive, and being more productive would mean traveling by air to be faster and quicker and to be able to do their business. So yes, and we have seen that really over the last 2 years, for instance, where as a result of the oil production, I mean, there has been dramatic increase in passenger numbers, especially on the Takrady route. But of course, generally, because of the growth in the economy, air transportation has become more popular with a lot of business people.
But
so
it's not becoming any cheaper, is it?
It is becoming cheaper. It is becoming cheaper. But I mean, back to the earlier point, you have over 200% growth between, say, 2010 and 2012 in terms of passenger numbers, and that you can directly attribute to the growth of the economy and of course, increase in competition as well as reduction in fares.
But there are a lot of other factors which come to bear on your operations. Some of them, including your tax burden. So overall, how do you break even when the economy is doing well and when it's not doing well? How do you juggle these situations?
Well, I mean, when the economy is doing well and you have a lot more people traveling, then all things equal, even if you reduce your fares, you have a lot more passengers, your load factor is high, and so you make a lot more money. I mean, a simple illustration will be, if you have a 100-seater aircraft and your fare is, say, 100 cedis, you can make 10,000 if you fill the aircraft. Now, if because the fare is 100 cedis, only 80 people are able to purchase your tickets,
you make a loss.
You make, let's say, 8,000. But at the same time, you can reduce the fare by, say, 10 cedis, you know, and then have the aircraft full. You make 9,000 instead of 8,000. I mean, that's the simple illustration I can give you. So if the economy improves and a lot more people are willing to travel by air, and of course, all other factors that we may discuss shortly are held constant, you expect to do well as an airline than the other way around. But specifically in terms of the rating, it has a lot of positive impact that we should expect. And maybe, during the course of the discussion, we'll go into detail, because it should make cost of finance cheaper. And finance is one of the key components of our operations. If you're able to lease an aircraft at a cheaper cost, or if you want to finance a new aircraft and you can borrow at a lower rate than currently, I mean, if you are borrowing at around 27%, you're not going to make profit.
You're not going anywhere.
And so you need this kind of rating to be able to go out there outside Ghana. I mean, our banks can syndicate some facility that you can get around between 8 to 10% on the dollar. If you can get that kind of finance as a result of the rating, then you are in good business.
So really, moving on, I mean, with or without these ratings, moving on, what do you think the aviation industry needs in order to get better?
A couple of things. In terms of taxes on aviation fuel, in Ghana, we're paying quite high for aviation fuel compared to the sub-region, Benin, Nigeria, Senegal. I mean, all the other countries, I think Ghana, we pay quite high for aviation fuel. Now, if the government...
I mean, when you say quite high, that's in comparison to their economies. So,
well, but I mean, if you look at West Africa, I don't think our economy is any
weaker than those who have cheaper aviation fuel costs.
And much of it has to do with taxes on aviation fuel. And I know that the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority has made representation to government to look at, take a second look at the taxes, because if the taxes are reduced, then most definitely airlines will be able to also reduce their fares and encourage a lot more people to fly, because aviation fuel constitutes 20 to 30% of cost of operations, and so it's quite significant if we get a reduction. That is one. If you look at cost of finance, as I said, the interest rate around 27% on the CD is very, very high, and even on the dollar, most banks will charge you around 14 to 15%, which is high compared to what others are getting outside of this country. Some get between 6 to 7% per annum. Now, that is what we think will enable us to also reduce our fares. If, for instance, with this rating, our government could, and I say could, guarantee or provide sovereign guarantee to a number of banks to go out there.
So really, you're saying could, but in reality,
but they should.
You wish that
I wish government would do something like that, so that some of our banks, no, not for operators directly, for some of our banks, I mean, as a syndicate, to go and get some facilities that they can then on-lend to airlines, for instance, to be able to get, I mean, brand new aircraft. That's what really our country needs.
But in business terms, is this feasible? Is this something that you would recommend Ghana government to stick its head into?
I think government should be able to do that, because the cost of borrowing in this country is too high. And I mean, if the banks can have access to cheaper finance out there because they have sovereign guarantee, why not? You know, so that is one other aspect. The other aspect for us at the moment has to do with the time of operation. All the regional airports close at 6 o'clock, some close at 2 o'clock. And I mean, if you lease an aircraft for, let's say, 220 hours per month, you guarantee minimum 220 block hours, which you pay for whether you utilize or not. So
or whether your economy is good.
Whether your economy is good or not. So if your aircraft is parked there after 6 p.m. and you are not able to make those hours, you still go ahead and pay at the end of the month. Meanwhile, the airport is sitting there. The only problem is runway lights. And I say it and I will say it again. Why is it that our government cannot provide the financing? If you want to go private sector,
the airline operators provide these runway lights?
Well, I mean, we have Ghana Airports Company Limited that is responsible for the airports, and they have to provide runway lights to make sure.
And you want to maximize, you can make an exceptional investment into that area.
The government can go into partnership with a private sector operator to be able to manage the airline, the airports, if the government cannot finance it. The private sector operators...
The option is available.
That's an option. They can invest and recoup their investment over time. But essentially, we operate airlines, we don't operate airports. And so it is for the government to show wherever I can source the financing from, whether to the private sector.
Seeing that you pay all the relevant taxes.
Yeah, we will pay what we have to pay to make sure our operations run smoothly. But we want to make sure we maximize the hours that we have contracted to utilize over a period, so that we can also make profit. I mean, mind you, we need to make profit to survive and to provide safety and quality for passengers. And as I said, if there are facilities that make it easy for airlines to go out there and procure brand new equipment, that is good for the economy. Because look, all the major players in the oil industry travel by air at the moment. Our roads are not safe, and most companies will not encourage their staff to travel by road. So it is in the interest of both the airlines and
when
the
you say
economy.
Our roads are not safe.
Well, the number of road accidents,
mean, really?
the number of road accidents that are recorded on a daily basis or weekly basis. I mean, so many deaths are recorded, and we are losing. Capacity, human resource, we're losing every day, and most companies will not take that risk. But beyond that, in terms of loss of productivity, I mean, if you spend 6 hours to go to Kumasi, as a business person, you're not being productive when you could fly for just 45 minutes. So we need to make the airline industry very, very efficient, and also so that we can reduce the fares for a lot more people to fly. That's very, very important.
That's very important. Right. Let me go back to the phone lines again to Mr. John Gachi, if you're there, sir.
Yes, I think I want to make some preliminary comments before you bring your question.
Yes, sure.
We need to distinguish between sovereign rating and then private rating. What Fitch has done is to rate the nation as a whole, and that provides a positive outlook for investment and partnership for government.
And that's sovereign rating. And that's sovereign rating, right?
Yes. Individual private entities must subject themselves to either compulsory or what we call voluntary rating. And if you are able to get a good rating, you can get cheaper access. You can get access to cheaper financing outside this country. There are selected private companies in Ghana who have subjected themselves to voluntary and compulsory private rating by the same rating entities, and as soon as they got a positive or investment grade rating, they are able to access cheaper funds outside the country. So it encourage the private sector to do their business in the right framework, so that when they subject themselves to rating, they can get good rating, and thereby attracting investment from outside that will be cheaper than the cost of borrowing in the country. If we do not encourage that, and we want to rely on government to show that government can only give sovereign backing to selected private company, that government would think that will fit into its agenda at a particular point in time. Government cannot show that fronting for all private
but shouldn't the aviation industry, at a critical time of oil discovery in this nation's history, be an important aspect of government, for government to consider going into some form of sovereign guarantee arrangements?
Of course, the aviation industry, especially at this point in time, is very critical. What I'm trying to say is that the aviation industry also has a private duty to engage in business operation in a manner that positive rating, and by which that private entity, aviation entity, can go into the international market and get cheaper capital, can go into alliance with other entities outside the country to get cheaper capital. So we need to exploit the two avenues. If we put all our eggs in one basket, then we may be disappointed and will not get access to cheaper credit that others are getting, even within the Ghanaian economy.
So, Mr. Gachi, I mean, the talk about oil discovery and the relevance of it in improving the growth of our economy, or even the forecast, are we not overestimating or being over-dependent on revenue expected to accrue from oil?
Well, I do not think, as of now, we are depending too much on oil discovery. But the pronouncement by those who are managing the economy and those who seek to manage the economy in the future are trying to heighten expectation beyond what the oil industry can provide for the growth of this economy. And that we need to worry about. If not so, we will run into a huge problem in the future.
Now,
so this is the point that I can make about that issue.
Right. Now, Finch still insists that the country should be containing spending and be moving towards gradual fiscal consolidation in order to, put the economy on a consistent and sound footing. How realistic is this?
Well, it's a big challenge because some of the issues that do crop up are such that it becomes difficult for the government to actually focus on prudent fiscal management in its absolute terms. For example, over the years, we have seen increase in crude oil prices over a period of time, which meant that the economic cost must be transferred to the people of this country. But because of social effects and then the economic effects, as well as the political issues involved in it, the state was not ready to pass on that to the consumer. And as a result of that, you will need to pay for a huge amount of a subsidy on petroleum products and energy. And when you engage in that, which becomes very difficult to extricate yourself from, then you can see that it becomes very difficult to totally engage in prudent fiscal management in line with what Fitch is saying. So that is why I'm saying that there is a big challenge with respect to that. We can manage the fiscal deficit to a certain extent, but we cannot go beyond that because it has implications for job creation. It has implications for investing in fiscal, infrastructure development in the country, which also build into job creation in the country. So if you're not careful, all those things will be affected. It is not only stemming down a fiscal deficit to a very large extent that will spur up the economic development. You must strike a balance.
Right, thank you. Mr. Gachi, we'll still get back to you, but we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
That's okay.